Hey team, it's Mary Lou Kayser. Before we get into today's show, I've got a question for you. How much time and thought have you put into designing your legacy? I'm not talking about financial planning. We do a pretty good job of preparing people for that. I'm talking about what happens in that space once the career ends. The truth is, too many people who have worked hard their entire lives discover they are not prepared for what happens when the work stops. And guess what? Your legacy will be defined for you whether you decide to own it or not. You see, I believe we are not here to leave a legacy. I believe we are here to live a legacy. And it is up to us to design and define the legacy we want to live. That's why I want to invite you to be a part of Your Legacy, Your Life, an exciting 6-week virtual program you get to enjoy once a week from the comfort of your home, beginning on February 20th and going through March 26th. Each week, we will meet for 90 minutes to explore the exciting possibilities of designing a legacy you can be proud of. Think of this program as a way to get clear about what life after work can mean for you from a personal and purpose vantage point. Get a customized legacy profile specific to your most authentic and true self. Gain clarity about what your life's experiences and how they can add value and make a difference to others. See your legacy roadmap unfold each week to guide you into the next phase of life with confidence and a sense of possibility. It's going to be a lot of fun, and I hope you will join me. Right now, early bird pricing is available, but the price will increase soon. Check out all the details over at maryloukayser.com/legacy24. That's maryloukayser.com/legacy24. This is a great opportunity to work with me and a cohort of dynamic professionals like the ones you hear each week on this podcast. What's your living legacy worth to you? I'm offering you the chance to not only create your legacy, but own the narrative of what it means. Again, go to maryloukayser.com/legacy24. I hope to see you there. Now, on to today's show.
This is the Player Position Podcast, where we huddle up, call the plays, and inspire you to run your ball into the end zone. Are you ready to score more game-winning touchdowns in your life, business, and career? Then listen up, because it's game time, baby. Now, here's your host, Mary Lou Kayser.
Hey everyone, Mary Lou Kayser here. Welcome to today's episode of the Play Your Position podcast. I'm glad you decided to join me today. I've got an interesting solo episode for you, some things to consider, some future trends, and, the usual good stuff. Like you heard in my ad, I say air quote ad at the beginning of this show, Your Legacy, Your Life program is now open, and I would love to have you join me for that. It is going to be a really awesome experience. And I'm going to be talking about experiences today. But first, I just want to say that it has been cold here in the Northeast. I know that I have listeners all over the world, so it may be warm where you are, but it is not warm here where I live. There's snow on the ground in many places, single digits with wind chill. If you're a football fan like I am and you watched some playoff football recently, you saw some games where the temperatures were really, really cold. And I got to hand it to not just the players, because they have to show up because it's their job, but I love the fans, the ones that are in the stadium with layers upon layers, hats, gloves. And then there's the crazy guys that take their shirts off and are just beating their chests and risking their health because of how much they love their team. I get a big kick out of fans, maybe because I am one. I don't know. I love being in a stadium full of fans. It's one of the best places in the world to me. Yeah, so on to today's content. Yesterday, I ventured out to a favorite small beach that's close to my house, and no one else was there, which made me extremely happy because I was searching for the peace and tranquility of having a place like that to myself for a little while. I knew I wasn't going to be out there long because of how cold it was, but I was in search of that solitude. And I had a purpose. I set up my tripod and I staged some photos for my newsletter and for my blog. If you're not on my newsletter list, I encourage you to get on it. It's really, really awesome. I just relaunched it this year. I'll have a link to sign up for that in the show notes page. Now, right after that photo was taken, I heard the voices of the two men. If you go and look at that photo on my blog, you can see these two guys are in the background, and I didn't know they were there right away. Well, then I heard voices, and I like, who the F is coming to the beach today? Like, who else is as crazy as I am? As they got closer, I could see each man was carrying a stick, and not just any stick you'd pick up on the ground, but it was a smooth stick with a little bit of curvature. It was really an interesting stick. And, so I said hello. They said hello. Then I said, what brings you out on a cold day like this? And what are you doing with those sticks? The older one said, oh, we're here to practice martial arts. What are you doing? I said, I'm taking photos for my newsletter and blog. That seemed to be an acceptable answer to them. So I returned to my tripod. They proceeded to warm up in the open space inside the picnic pavilion, which I will admit ruined my vibe of solitude. Not that I had anything against them, not that they were right next to me either. I mean, there was plenty of space. I was on one end of the pavilion and they were on the other. And truthfully, there was enough room for all of us. My crushed vibe had more to do with their unexpected presence than anything else. Most people, I have found, aren't as adventurous, perhaps crazy, as I am, intentionally going outside on a cold day because I like the cold. I grew up in the cold. I like cold days. Yet there they were, right there with me. They're stretching their arms, doing their leg warm-ups in preparation for practicing martial arts in 20-degree weather. Now, once I got over the initial shock of having my solitude interrupted, I thought, how cool is it that I'm not the only crazy one who ventures out into freezing temperatures to have an experience and find some sense of being that's beyond myself. That got me thinking about, maybe it was being outside in the cold for a bit, or maybe it's because we're still in January and the rest of the new year lies ahead of us. This has gotten me thinking more about the future, what's in store for 2024. It could also be that I'm an Aquarius, and Aquarians are notoriously future-oriented. Whatever the reason, for today's podcast, I decided to focus on a topic that has relevance for any of us who are looking ahead to what could be next for our personal lives and also for our professional lives. And that topic lies in the title of today's podcast, which is More Experiences, Less Stuff. Some of you may remember the bumper stickers that were popular from the 80s that said, "He who dies with the most toys wins." All right? I remember seeing those all over the place. That message is no longer bringing whatever strange sense of satisfaction it at one time brought. And the truth of the matter is, we Americans are materialistic. I think many first world countries are, but America, I think we're at the top of the heap when it comes to stuff and having a ton of stuff. And I remember there was a backlash to those bumper stickers that said, "He who dies with the most toys still dies." And I loved that because it was kind of an FU to whoever came up with that initial campaign. But seriously, heads up to anyone listening who is remotely interested in where our economy is heading. And I am not I'm a futurist, but I'm not a professional, financial person or whatever. So take what I say with a grain of salt. People who are way smarter than I am have collected data about consumer spending trends for the next few years. And like with any other predictions, nothing is set in stone. Because I am a futurist, I tend to gravitate towards these. And based on my own social listening, I and you could say this is confirmation bias, and it may be, I happen to agree with what I'm seeing. And I'm also a parent of a millennial and a Gen Zer, and those two generations are choosing very different paths than their Gen X and Boomer parents, okay? And I'm a Gen Xer, and I know I've talked about generations before in the show, and I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, but I feel like us Gen Xers, we are sandwiched between the other generations. I mean, we're smack in the center right now. We've got boomers and senior boomers ahead of us, and we've got millennials and Gen Zers and alphas behind us. And all of us are running around the planet, with our own levels of trauma and healing and trying to figure it out and getting our basic needs met, on and on and on. So I'll cut to the chase here. What these really smart people are finding through data is that American consumers are putting their money into two categories more than any others. The first category is personal growth / transformation, and the second one is having experiences, for example, international travel, okay? They are not putting their money into acquiring more stuff the same way people were in the past. So there's a trend down on major purchases. And there's a lot of reasons for that. Interest rates are high. It's hard to get funding for big purchases. Student loan debt. There's a lot of reasons. But, the thing is that if you're interested in trends like I am, there's value to understanding what's the vibe out there, right? So what does this mean for us? Well, number one, if your work has anything to do with either of these categories, the future looks bright. It's not that if you're in a product-centered category or your business or your work is product-oriented, it doesn't mean that it's the end of the line for you. That not at all. It's just that the purchasing products per se is trending down. And then the second thing this means for us is if you are thinking about making a pivot or starting something new, opportunities abound for continuing in the space or entering the space and contributing your unique point of view to the larger conversation. Now, this trend is obviously music to my ears because the backbone of my business is personal transformation. At the heart of this show, Play Your Position, is personal growth, personal transformation, understanding through the stories of other people's answering the call to leadership, and then everything else that comes out in the conversations that I have with my guests, we can glean insights about ourselves. And at the end of the day, that's the game we're playing. We are playing against ourselves. Our job while we're here, I believe, is to discover and understand who we are so that we can play our positions effectively and feel great about being who we are and what we're contributing to the world, whether it's a large scale or a small scale, it doesn't matter. That's why I'm here, to be a guide on that journey. And it's why I create programs like Your Legacy, Your Life. It's why I work one-on-one with people who are writing their first book about some personal transformation experience and framework that they've developed, like my good friend Claudio Toyama, who has been on this podcast a couple of times. He and I just reconnected after several years because of COVID and other circumstances. We are here to learn and grow and contribute and ultimately serve others through whatever it is that we're passionate about, right? All that talk about finding your purpose and living your purpose and your passion and all that all has relevance. And it takes time. And some people get it right out of the gate, and some people, it takes decades. It doesn't matter how long it takes, as long as you get it at some point, right? So I am liking the general feeling of optimism that I'm getting about a collective shift happening in the world. It seems as if people are beginning to realize on a mass scale that the accumulation of things for the sake of accumulating things and outpacing the proverbial Joneses, that's reached its tipping point. And while I will admit I like having certain things in my life, I love nice clothes and having a home, having a car, etc. and so forth. What I treasure most in my life are the memories firmly grounded in the amazing experiences I've had. And these are experiences that I have chosen to have. Some of the highlights, if you've been listening to me for a while or you know me personally, some of these will sound familiar. I worked as a rafting guide on the Kenai River in Alaska for 4 summers. That was incredible. Wouldn't trade that experience for anything. When I was growing up, my family and I camped for the entire summer on a lake in Maine. Fantastic experience. No television, no electricity, was left up to my imagination and being creative. And I was in the woods and I was swimming every day. I mean, I was in heaven. Let me just tell you that. I cycled toured both islands of New Zealand for 3 months. Last year, I spent a weekend in New York City with some of my mastermind friends. We went out to some hip restaurants. We saw a Broadway musical. I traveled in 2019 through the UK with my 2 children. Between 2020 and 2021, I hired a coach for a full year to help me break through some of the meanest internal blocks anyone could ever have. And let me tell you, internal blocks can be nasty SOBs. I would never trade writing and publishing my books. They're out there. I'm proud of them. I did it, and I'm doing more. I've got another book coming out this spring. And I suspect that you have your own version of a list like this, where you could write down experiences and decisions you've made that led to something that isn't a tangible object, but that blew the doors off a new couch or a slick sports car or a Chanel bag or a diamond bracelet. Again, I have nothing against these things. If those things matter to someone, great. Nothing wrong with it. For me, things versus experiences, they don't even compare. You can't even put them on the same page. So as we wrap things up today, team, I just want you to be thinking about, if you're looking to expand this year, perhaps you're looking for a way to cash in on consumer spending, on consumer trends, or you're wondering, should we shell out a few grand for a smart refrigerator? Does that make more sense than investing in, say, a personal growth program or going on that dream trip to see Machu Picchu? My recommendation is skip the appliance store and head straight for the transformation, the growth, the experience. Seriously. Again, that's just my opinion, not telling you what to do. I just know that's what I would choose. And, unless your old fridge is avocado green, I have no judgment here, nothing against those old avocado green fridges. But seriously, what you currently have, unless it's just so old and on the fritz, your current fridge is probably just fine, and having the latest and greatest that can talk to you or allow you to watch TikTok as you're getting milk out for cookies and milk. I mean, seriously. Your next adventure awaits. And I'll leave you with a question. What might that be? What might that next experience be for you as a private citizen, or perhaps as a business owner, a business builder, a solopreneur, an artist, whatever it is you've got on your list of things that you look at and you say, someday could be a lot closer than you realize as we get into this exciting new year. All right? So that's it for today, team. As always, I appreciate you listening. And if you want to check out the Your Legacy, Your Life program, if you have questions about it, hit me up. I'm on the socials. You can connect with me through both of my websites, maryloukaser.com and also playyourpositionpodcast.com. Got some exciting conversations getting ready to drop, so pay attention to your feed in your podcast, and you're not going to want to miss those. And in the meantime, remember, it is always a great day to get out there and play your position. This is Mary Lou Kaser. We will catch you next time.
Here at the Play Your Position podcast, we believe that the road to self-mastery and a life well lived starts with answering the call to leadership. That's when the fun really begins. Send this episode to any friends who might need to hear the inspiration and ideas you heard today. And feel free to rate and review us on your favorite podcast platform.